Ruslan.
I think one thing I appreciate about you, and I don't know if you've heard Dr. Eric Thomas, motivational speaker. He's also a preacher. One thing that resonates with me so much about you guys in particular is that you guys preach a lot about the work. Eric Thomas, he was preaching a sermon and he broke it down, the verse which says that all things work together for good. And he was saying that pretty much to paraphrase what he was saying, he was like, imagine this giant boulder is the good that you want, and you have to move it, you got to move it up the hill in order to, see the good come about in your life. Your faith is what gets you to believe that you can push this rock. The work is the actual pushing.
Come on.
So in order for that good to come about, you got to start pushing. You know what I'm saying? The faith is just going to get you to start doing it. It's not going to do it for you.
Let me describe it this way for you guys. Okay, so look, there's two pots you got to look at when you're becoming an adult, especially if you're a man. There's one passage which says, if a man not work, he ought not eat. Okay, if a man not work, he ought not eat. Okay, so there's this direct correlation to work, sustenance, and shelter. Okay, one side is work, sustenance, and shelter. Then there's another principle, which is this metaphor of sowing and reaping all throughout the New Testament. The parables, Jesus talks about sowing and reaping, right? There's a lot in there about sowing and reaping. So there's two pots that we have to understand and engage these things. And one side of it as an adult is you gotta eat. You gotta provide, you gotta eat, you gotta put in the work. And that may be just a job. That may be a vocation. That may be something that is you do to eat, to pay for food and shelter. Then there's the other side of reaping and sowing. Now, one is more of a short-term build. You need to eat, so you need to go work. Maybe you'll make 20 bucks an hour, 15 bucks an hour, 30 bucks an hour. You need to go and do that so you can work and have food and shelter. The other side is a longer term play of sowing and building something up, tending to the land, making sure there's no foxes, making sure there's no weeds, making sure the ground is fertile, putting the seed in, right? Adding the fertilizer, right? And then God sends the rain and ultimately produces the fruit. God ultimately makes it grow. And for some of us, that could be in a year or two, because maybe you had access to someone that can help you along the path and be like, yo, if you do A, B, and C, you could avoid these foxes and you can kill these weeds earlier, get this weed killer. And that process can roll faster if you got mentors, if you got access to information. And then for others of us like me, it might take you 10 years of consistently sowing and sowing and sowing and sowing and sowing and sowing and not knowing how to tend to the land, not understanding weeds, not understanding the process. And then eventually there's a harvest, right? Eventually there's a harvest. But while I'm sowing and while I'm tending to the land, I don't ever stop. I don't ever stop working. I don't ever stop working to eat. I don't ever stop working for shelter. I don't ever stop working. So there are two different pots that sometimes we don't really think about. And we just think, well, I just need to get my thing off the ground. I just need to get my thing off the ground. A lot of y'all just need to work for a season. A lot of y'all just need to work for a season, understand work ethic, understand what it's like doing something where you don't feel like doing it. You don't feel like putting in the work. You don't feel like the hustle. You don't feel like getting up early. You don't feel like the grind. But that will teach you the perseverance and the character to eventually sow until you see the harvest. And whenever you sow to see the harvest, you got to be deliberate. You got to be intentional. You got to get mentors. You got to get people that have seen a harvest and get around them and ask them, what do they do to see the harvest? Was there some special fertilizer? Do I need to run to Home Depot? Right? And we think everything is linear and just direct, but you need multiple streams. You need multiple mentors. You need always to be thinking over what you're doing and know that it's not going to be an overnight process. A lot of us just really want to get rich quick scheme, and that's why we get into YouTube, or that's why we get into doing music. And this is not where you go for a get rich quick scheme. This is not how you do it. Like, this is not the Bitcoin of 2017. And if I invest in Bitcoin in 2017, it'll be worth $50,000. That's not what this is. This is a longer game plan of building something where you're consistently sowing, tending to the land, working the land, and then eventually you wake up and you go, whoa, I had to work to eat. I had to work for food and shelter, but I also on the side built something that will hopefully replace what you did for work to eat, and then eventually flourish and get bigger, and then eventually help other people learn how to get to where you got to faster, not so you can monetize off of them. Maybe some you will, maybe you'll do consulting or whatever, I don't do paid consulting, but maybe you will. And then you will eventually help other people get there sooner and get there faster, which I feel like is my responsibility as a Christian. I don't need to charge anybody for one-on-one consulting. I'll just do a Zoom call and help people out. And so hopefully that's helpful, those two pots. And they're not one and the same. Like, they're not one and the same. Unless you just come from an extremely godly family that just trained you up to be a freaking saint of a child. And as you slowly build it from when you were a kid and you saved all your money and you didn't make any bad decisions, and then maybe at 20 you start your business because your dad helped you start your bit, right? Like, my son can maybe do that, but me, no. There was no one that helped me. I had to figure it out. There was no one that gave me a handout. There was right? I just had to work through it. So hopefully that's something that, like, we could all take away, and just a mentality shift of saying, like, it's okay to work. It's okay to do both for a season, but it will get easier. Joshua the king came down and bore it all. Yeah. Conversations front of the fireplace. All of my mistakes, how do I erase? Wanna operate at a higher pace. Birth pains causing the body to dilate on a first name basis with the